Yes, hi, thanks, Simon. Hi, I'm Becky Wilkes. I lead the research team within Consumer Insights in the Catapult. If I could have the next slide, please. So, as we've just heard, smart local energy systems have got potential to unlock huge value across the energy system. But to unlock that value, service users are going to need to benefit. Because at the end of the day, at the end of every pipe and every wire sits a paying customer. If they can't easily see how they'll benefit from a service, then they might not engage with it, they might not take it up, and new services might not reach the critical mass that makes that service viable. If they do take up a service, but then they can't easily use it to get what they want, then they might not reach the experience they want. They may go cold, or they might resent paying the bill. And they might find a way to get what they want. And in that case, the systems might not perform as we expect. So we might just see that peaks in energy demand just move, or carbon emission and air quality ambitions go unachieved. Customers could become more costly to serve instead of experiencing cheaper bills. So all risks if the consumer is not getting the service that they're looking for from any new smart local energy offer. On the next slide, just summarised 3 different ways that consumer insights can help energy innovators make sure that services really do work for people. Those are through research, where we can find out what consumers really want from energy, through design, where we can create experiences that they will enjoy, and through trials, where we can test products and services in a more closer to real world environment and check that they work, check that that system really does perform as expected. On the next slide, you can see here a snapshot of a methods map. There's an awful lot of different ways that we can go about generating consumer insights. So we've created a method map that summarises 18 different tools and techniques. It gives you the highlights of the pros and cons of each, an indication of the timings, of the cost of doing them, and how you might stitch some of those techniques together to create a unique programme of work for any particular project. It's available on the People Lab website. It's available easily online, and you can access that to design your own programme of work. But whatever route you take, thank you, Anna, a good place to start is to run research. That's to find out what customers need and what they value, and to check that your offer appeals. So through previous work, we've spoken to thousands of consumers over the years, and learned that people want different things, and they get those different things in different ways. So it's not all about staying warm. When people are using heat, they're also looking to promote health. Nearly 2/3 of people think that health is a significant factor in how they go about heating their home. They're also looking to enrich relationships, whether that's keeping other members of the household warm, or making their home warm and inviting for guests. And many people also use heat to protect their property, stopping freezing pipes, preventing damp, things like that. But in addition to wanting to use heat to different ends, people prioritise different things to get that heat. We've developed a segmentation to understand why different groups of people use heat in different ways. We found 8 different groups of people, represented by these 8 little animals on the right of this slide. There's an awful lot of nuances in that, with 8 different groups, as you'd imagine. But some of the highlights to take away are that really some people prioritise managing resource, whether that is financial management and saving money, or that's avoiding waste, or trying to reduce carbon. Another group of people are much more comfort focused, and they prioritise getting comfortable, either for themselves or for other people. And that may come regardless of the cost of doing that. Others still are disinterested. And there's a separate group who we would class as disengaged, as actively disengaged. Now, that's a group of people who are frustrated or confused. They've often had bad experiences trying to get warm in the past, and they've effectively kind of switched off to the issue. So successful energy services will help consumers to do the things they want whilst prioritising these different things. The next slide, please. Thanks. So we've also asked consumers what they think about local energy and some of the associated services that might be offered within local energy systems. We asked our Home Truths panel of thousands of consumers, and over half of them told us they liked the idea of local energy. They assumed that it would save them money, and they liked that it would be potentially community owned and that they would be able to access green energy as a result. Also, over 40% of people told us that they would trust a local energy company more, which was great to hear. Having said that, nearly a quarter actually said they might not trust a local energy company as much. That was because they worried that they might be inexperienced, or they might be unreliable. There was a sense of kind of uncertainty around the kind of newness of the offer and who might be offering that to them. Now, when we asked about different services such as heat as a service, maybe vehicle to grid, different services that might be offered within a smart local energy system, feedback was a bit more mixed. And what we learned really is that people need to understand a service before they're willing to try it. Local energy can drive positivity towards services, especially some of those barriers around perceptions of inexperience, sort of concerns about unreliability can be addressed. But crucially, people are wary of giving away control, whether that's of their heating system or their sort of when their electric vehicle is charging, until they are confident that they'll get the service that they want. So there are lots of tools and techniques like offering kind of guarantees, maybe override options when you're developing new services that can give people that reassurance to start with whilst they're building up that trust. Can I have the next slide, please? So once we understand what people want, the next step is to design products or services for your customers. Now, new energy products and services promise to bring consumers plenty of benefits in cleaner, cheaper local energy. But there are also risks when we do anything new for the first time. It might not go as expected. But bad news stories early on can create resistance and prevent us all taking these huge opportunities that we're talking about today. So to help avoid those news stories, we've created a smarter protection toolkit, a manual, which is designed to help bottom out some of the risks that might come up with doing something new, and help innovators kind of get it right first time. I'm calling that out because we have used it recently with Kent's heat pumps to understand some of the risks associated with an activity that they're planning, where they are looking at upgrading social housing tenants' heating systems to include a heat pump and a time of use tariff. Now, they're a very customer focused organisation. There's loads of sort of happy customers and customer testimonials and so on. They're also very much obviously at this kind of sort of forefront of innovation here, trying something new. So we put this service idea through the protections manual. We learned some things that will apply to any new system, I think, that uses a new heating system. Really, that's centred on customer confusion being a risk in a new heating system that behaves differently. So anywhere where we are taking a customer and offering them a different heating system to one they've used before, if it is likely to behave differently, that might throw them and they might not behave in the ways that we expect. So if you consider something like a heat pump, perhaps it's on in the afternoon heating a home at different times to when someone is used to. Maybe they turn their heating off normally in the day because they're out to turn their gas boiler off. If they come home and find a heat pump on, they might be worried about wasting money or running up a bill if they don't understand how it works. They may then turn their heating off and then be cold later and experience a higher bill as they're trying to heat their home later in the day. So what all that identified was that by setting expectations with customers early on, and as I say, I think this applies across many new systems where we've got new services and new systems going into customer homes. If we can set that expectation early on and help them understand where things might behave differently and why they're doing that, what the benefit of that is to them, we can avoid some unexpected behaviours. We're back to the system performing perhaps closer to how we're expecting it to. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Finally, once you've refined your ideas and we've got a prototype, that final step, going back to our method map, is in testing your idea with customers. The earlier you do that, the cheaper it is to fix any problems. It's always a good idea to start early where you can. And we considered the issue of smart heating controls, because they often come up in the context of smart local energy systems and the heat services that might be offered. Now, smart heating controls are growing in popularity, but they're certainly not yet commonplace across UK homes. So they're still at risk that they might not deliver benefits as expected, or they might change consumption in unpredictable ways. We ran a trial with some vulnerable households at risk of fuel poverty. This was conducted last winter, I think. We gave them some smarter controls and ran some research through a trial to see if they helped them help them use their heating. And what we learned really is that, like any other customer type, they value the same things. They were looking for getting comfortable, caring for others, protecting their home. There's a lot of variation between types of vulnerable customer, what they're trying to achieve, what it is that's motivating them. We found they did enjoy using those smarter controls and felt they were better able to control their home heating. So it was a positive experience that came from them. It also identified that they have very different heating preferences. So between the small number of homes we've included in this trial, there was a vast difference in the temperatures they were looking for, the times that they were looking to heat their home for. And when given the ability to do this through these smarter controls, there was also a lot of variation in the number of rooms people were heating as well. And all of that, I think, bottoms out to how important it is to consider the breadth of vulnerable customers' needs and wants when we're designing services. We describe them in one bucket as sort of vulnerable customers, but like any customer group, they're varied. Their needs are varied, their wants are varied, their behaviours are varied, and we need to factor that into our design. Through the course of this trial, we also learned that vulnerable customers want to control how much they spend, but not necessarily minimise it. What the trialists valued was being able to understand the costs of using energy so that they can choose how to do that themselves and make decisions to make those trade-offs between sort of cost and warmth and achieving some of their different goals. Whilst many of them knew the price of their energy bill, actually knowing what it costs to turn up the temperature by a couple of degrees or turn it down, so add a room, take a room off, add another hour of heating, it's very difficult for any customer to understand, but particularly helping vulnerable customers understand that in the design of new services will really help them to sort of give them the information and empower them to make those decisions and manage the costs as best as they want to. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, finally, we've been working with energy innovators for several years now, and we've learned lots about how to design and deliver different propositions and what the pitfalls are along the way. So we've built a knowledge hub. It's called People Lab. The link is on the slide there. It's a useful resource to learn more about some of the work we've already done across different energy services and smart local energy systems in particular. So there's maybe some useful content for your next project there.
What one thing should smart local energy systems do to engage consumers more effectively in local energy?
Okay, well, let's perhaps start by acknowledging that most consumers aren't engaged in energy, full stop. So whether that is national or local, there's a challenge there. And if we want to take what are effectively kind of passive recipients of energy at the moment and encourage them to be active participants and to engage in energy systems of any kind, and smart local energy systems in particular, we need to offer them services, experiences that they need and they want. So if I had to pick one thing, I guess it would be co-design, working with consumers, to working with the end users of any service, really, to understand what they need to build the service with them. It can be done in a relatively light touch way, whether that's just feeding through with sort of surveys and little bits of feedback as you go, or kind of really bringing consumers into the mix and designing with them in workshops. So that would be my sort of top thing. If you'd indulge me and let me have a second, I think there's an opportunity here to promote decarbonisation effectively. One thing we often miss is that people are very engaged in the issue of climate change. In one of our recent surveys, 3/4 of people agree that it is a global emergency. And they are looking for ways to take action, but they don't always know how, which is why we often see people telling us that climate change is important, and perhaps they are recycling more, reducing their single-use plastics and so on. But very rarely talking about things like changing their heating system. And in fact, a good half of people don't understand that their gas boiler contributes to climate change. So just sort of informing people of that link between their gas boiler and climate change, and then some of the opportunities to do something different, would certainly help. Of course, whatever that different thing, again, has to deliver what they need and they want, and give a good experience for them to then actually want to take it up in the first place. But yeah, there's a service there, and giving people the reason to get to that service, that I think are both important.